Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's live broadcast with the Jensens. Sorry for being a little bit late getting online. Had a little issue with StreamYard, but I got fixed. But unfortunately, I accidentally kicked the Jensens off. I just had them in the booth. I'm going to get them back in. So if you can bear with me, we'll begin shortly. But the key is tonight, it's all going to be about fly fishing with the Jensens, and a great way not to focus on CNN or Fox News or wherever you're watching right now and thinking about what's going on with politics and things with the election. So let me just send an email to them. Okay, just sent them an email. Hopefully they'll get it here. Hey, everybody. Hello from, hey, PEI. And let me just send an email here. And do an invite. Whew. Sometimes I have a lot of problems doing this from home. So my apologies to everyone. And thanks for the nice comments, everybody. And I hope you've been enjoying our YouTube channel, or if you're watching us on television on the World Fishing Network, Sportsman's Channel, PBS, wherever it is you're watching the show. And hopefully I'll have the Jensens back here in just a second. So let me talk to you about the Jensens. I actually met the Jensens 20 years ago when they lived around Red Deer, and at that time they were guiding on the Red Deer River as well as some other rivers. And we did a show with them. It was actually, I think, in the second or third season of the New Fly Fisher here in Canada on the Outdoor Life Network. And this is before I went on PBS in the United States. And we did this show, and it was really great. And they were fairly new, and like me, a lot younger. And it was a great experience. But over the years, we've kept in touch, and I've watched them do a whole bunch of different things. And now they have a YouTube channel, which is really, really popular. I'm just going to add Amelia here.
Hello.
Sorry about that.
No, I don't have any volume.
Oh. Well, I can hear you, Amelia.
Oh, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I sure can. Yeah.
We're good.
Okay.
We're good to go.
I was just talking, and I apologize for giving you the boot. I had a little problem with the start of the broadcast. It happens sometimes. But just talking about how I met you both the first time back in 2002, 2003, and you were living around Red Deer, and you took me out on the Red Deer River for brown trout, and you were just guiding then. And I can't remember how we got connected, but we went out and did that show. That was, like, I hate to say it, like 17 years ago, 18 years ago.
It's a long time.
The good news is, Dave, you and I haven't done well, but Amelia, you look the same. Yeah. So well done.
Oh, give me a break.
Well, hey, come on.
These crow's feet are something. I'll tell you something.
Don't see a thing.
Yeah.
That's
so for everyone that's joining us right now, it really is a pleasure to have the Jensens on here. I've had a lot of respect for everything they've done over the years. And now they're really getting into the YouTube world, and they've got a channel which is really fantastic, which we'll get to. But I think the first thing is I'd like to talk a little bit about the history of what you both have done. I mean, you're both obviously fly fishing fanatics, but what led you, what the path was that got you to where you are today to be so adorned by fly fishers throughout the world, and especially in the United States, for the quality of the products you guys make for Orbis, as well as now your new YouTube channel. So first, Dave and Amelia, why don't you tell me a little bit about, what got you into this? What got you, I mean, I know we did the show together, but what got you into guiding?
Go for it.
You start her out, Dave.
you want the truth?
Yeah.
I was working for the Forest Service out of Rocky Mountain House, Alberta. And I specifically went to school to be in the Forest Service, and I wanted to be in the Forest Service based out of Rocky Mountain House because my favorite trout rivers were near Rocky Mountain House. And I think I worked out of Rocky for about 4 seasons. And every year, this was back in the Klein era when the environment just, the department just got hammered. So I wound up looking for a job. I went out to Squamish, BC for, I think, the first 3 months I had a full-time job, and it was like, yes, I'm a forest officer. Awesome. I don't have to deal with government cutbacks in Alberta anymore. Well, the BC government changed, and 3 months after I got there, basically the office went from 140 down to 60. And my boss said, well, Dave, we really want you. And you're kind of of all the new guys, you're one of the 2 chosen of the 25 that they had to let go. And I just said, you know what? I've been going 5 years now through government cutbacks. And I thought there's got to be a better way in life to go ahead. So I just said, you know what? I think I can make more money guiding fly fishing in the summers back in Rocky Mountain House area than putting up with, I think I was making $12.37 an hour working for the Alberta Forest Service. And I think it got me all the way up to 35 grand a year working for the BC Forest Service, which if you ever tried to live kind of between West Vancouver and Whistler, that doesn't get you much for a living. So that was my shtick. And at that same time, I met Amelia and we were together.
I was going to say, it doesn't hurt that Dave had literally been fly fishing since you were 5 years old. And so, you kind of knew a lot of those waters like the back of your hand within Alberta. And, you'd spent so much time on them, right? But yeah. we met up. I actually did not come from a family who fly fished at all, who really didn't fish at all. But I had a really outdoorsy background, parents that were pretty adventurous and did all kinds of backcountry skiing and, basically went out to a family cabin every year that had no running water, no electricity, and just loved to be in the outdoors. So yeah, when Dave certainly met him and knew his absolute extreme passion for fly fishing, I thought, well, man, if I'm going to spend any time with this guy, I better check it out. And so, yeah, Dave took me we went for a week-long trip actually into one of the rivers that we ended up guiding on, the Ram River. And it was hard not to love, because at that time we encountered a big golden stonefly hatch, and the river went off, and I didn't have to have any skill whatsoever. I just had to get, that indicator, essentially, a nice big bushy dry on the water, and fish were going to eat. So that's kind of, but from there, hey,
yeah.
You want to pick up the story from there?
Well, I don't know. Is that the direction you want to go, Colin? Or you looking to, like, the whole guiding thing? Really, we just started. I think it was at the same time. What year did we get married? 98, and that just was kind of the booming kind of get go of internet. Really, it was the mid 90s, and internet kind of started kicking in. And we were guiding, I think, from 2008 through until we bought Fortress Lake in fall of 05. And we kept guiding a bit after that. But we did a lot of stuff like we did. I think I spent every day in a helicopter for the last 5 years we were guiding, as we went to Golden Trout Lakes, the Ram Canyon, and a bunch of other stuff. So that was a really cool experience. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was so picturesque. Some of the places that we were going and we were taking clients were so stunning, and we wanted to capture them, not only as memories in the form of photography, but also as ways in which the videography stuff as well started to transpire then, but ways in which we could actually start to promote ourselves. And I think that was a big sort of starting point for where we really decided, okay, we want to kind of do more and more. And I think, the more time we spent on the water, the neat situations we found ourselves in, we're like, we got to capture this, and that's where the birth of some of our really tight up close shots of fish, I think, really started then. It's certainly the desire to capture it. I mean, at that time, our actual equipment was pretty bare bones. Kind of still is in
Well,
some
have we really
capacities, right?
have we really progressed much? I mean, the honest truth is, Colin, when we got married in '98, I think we had $3,500 on a Pontiac Sunbird, and you know, you know how it is. I mean, you live the dream, right? So it's not like we came for money or we're going for money or we're in money, but we just find a way, and we got hold of a video camera, actually a helicopter company that we used. Just said, here's a camera, go filming and just share the stuff on the internet. And quickly, the Red Deer River was on fire at that time. When it was good, it was amazing. And what would happen is, right in the city of Red Deer, you'd go down to a riffle, and there's only 1 or 2 browns per riffle, and there's not a lot of riffles, but they were big fish. You're talking 22-inch average fish at that time. And my idea was, just shoot for the internet. Just shoot for the internet. Make it so that people sitting, and at that time, what the screens were, what you could actually do on the internet for video. If you got a 20-inch screen, you could only had so much bandwidth without buffering delays and all that stuff, that you could only, there was this big. So you had to film with in mind that size. So if I could put you, or Amelia could put you on the river with us, and make you feel like you're part of the shot and you're there watching this brown, and a screen that big, if 3/4 of it was just this head coming up to eat a mayfly, that got a lot of attention 20 years ago.
Still does, Dave. Still
I
does.
know. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
I'll never forget being on a Spring Creek. This was actually in New Zealand, and the water was just amazing. It was it was a very flat section of the Spring Creek. And I just remember this huge, big male brown, and it was both the head and the tail. And I actually think we have a clip of it on our Strip Down the Brown Trout Project DVD that we put out back in 2014. And I just go, oh, the tail, and you hear me say that, because it was epic. I mean, the fish looked massive. In the end, I think, it was more of a visual thing, because I don't think it really was, it wasn't like a 10+ pounder, it was still a really, really good fish. Maybe 7 pounds, Dave, you might remember the
scale of relevancy is important. It wasn't that big.
No, it was a gorgeous fish, but
where are we talking? If you're talking New Zealand, sure, 5 to 7 pound fish are relatively common. Anywhere else in the world, I mean, Iceland's got, anyway. But to back it up, that's where we really started to promote. And the reason I mentioned how little the money that we started with was because we have never really had a lot of money, but the idea has always been just build a life so that we can be on the river. And back then we had a borrowed camera, and then we just basically tried to market ourselves. And, we got to the place where we're guiding full time and we couldn't take any more customers. We could have done the outfitter route, absolutely, but then that's business, and you're in front of a computer or email instead of out on the water, and that's not what we want to do. And then fast forward 2005, a massive flood hit the Red Deer River, and essentially the fisheries management at that time was trying to get walleye back in the river at the same time as the big flood hammered the browns. And the brown trout population went down by about 80% at the same time that the river dynamics changed. And now you're getting a whole bunch of walleye showing up, and they kind of took over where brown trout were. So it went from a really solid shoreline edge rising brown trout river to a lot more streamers, a lot more of this and a lot more of that. And we knew when that flood hit that we had to do something business wise to get a bit more stability. And that's where our helicopter company told us, hey, this place up at Fortress Lake where these big brook trout are, it's for sale. And in hindsight, it was a heck of an education.
Dave, I'm going to stop you at Fortress. Right now, to stick to the time when you're guiding.
Okay.
Because you did a show with us, a second show.
Yep.
A few years later.
Yeah.
This time it was with Phil Rowley and Tom Rosenbauer.
Yeah.
Because I remember Tom, I think, certainly knew you guys, but didn't, hadn't had a lot of experience with you, and that kind of introduced you guys to start, conversing more, which, probably led to where you are today with Orvis. But I actually cut a clip from that show, and as long as I don't screw this up, because first time I'm going to do it, I'm going to try and share it with everybody here. So let me give this a try and see if this works.
So Tom, we have a corner pocket here. We know brown trout are big, fat, and sassy, but they're also lazy. When the time comes to feed, they'll do so, but until then, they're not going to leave this depth of water. Mm-hmm. Right now, we have the biggest fish that's working is sitting right there, and the top end of the bucket. He'll take the biggest stuff, but there's also 2 more fish that have moved up because we have a PMD hatch, and they're working that seam just in the top end of that seam coming in.
Okay, so they move from the deep water up into their current to feed.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, he's moving. You got him. Yeah. Good show. Good show.
Yeah.
Wow, nice fish, Tom.
Yeah.
Watch the mud on angle here.
Nice fly.
She floats. Here's those banks I was telling you about earlier in the trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thought I could do it.
There you go. Yeah, it's 18, 19.
Wow. Wow. Thanks, Dave.
Great fish.
Oh, that makes me miss that water.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's neat.
So a few memories from back in your guiding days, and like I said, that was with Phil and Tom, and I remember when that show went to air because I got so many emails asking me where that stream was from Alberta. Well, I even got like from Montana people asking me.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you're the same, right?
Yeah, well, Tom got hammered as well over at Orvis. I could tell you a lot. I don't know. It sounds egotistical, and I don't mean to frame it this way, but the number of times that we've been asked where, or people, literally driving to follow us and follow. I don't know. There's so many people that are so focused on the where that we get hounded a lot. We'll share a picture from New Zealand, and we'll get people Google Earthing to find out within a meter, and they'll send you the coordinates of where you're standing in that picture. Or a New Zealand film guy that spent 2.5 months on Google Earth trying to find the telephone pole behind us and where I caught this 18-pound brown. Well, it's not about the where, it's about, and I know that you get the same thing. It's not about the where, it's about the go. Take it on, have a go, try, find new stuff, go walk, go explore, poke around, and make we're
all about finding your own magic. Yeah, exactly. Because the reality is, I think what people have to sort of recognize is just, hey man, it ain't going to be the same as what you see. Conditions change all the time. Waters change all the time. And that's why I'm a big proponent of, hey, enjoy it while it lasts. Enjoy it while it is what it is right now, and take it on for what it is right now. Because you won't go and recreate that. So it's well worth just being present for yourself and your spot. And there, a lot of the enjoyment comes in actually finding that spot for yourself, wherever that might be. I mean, Google Earth it. That's what we do a lot of.
Well, and I know we're off the topic of the guiding time and your show, but the last thing I want to say about that is I'm actually, it's going to sound really bizarre. We've been going to New Zealand 13 years in a row. This is the 14th and we're off. And in that time, we guided, then we fish, and we fish nonstop. We fish about 225, 250 days a year. And I mean, 10, 14-hour days. It's actually been in the last month, it's been a real brain release, because what I do, I'm obsessive. I'm one of these over the top obsessive guys about conditions, about finding Google Earth, about finding new spots to poke around, and then making sure that I every couple of days, if we're in New Zealand, Alberta, checking the weather forecast, checking the flows, and trying to line up where we can kind of systematically pick apart this valley or that valley or this watershed based on conditions. And when you think about getting eaten alive by mosquitoes, getting eaten alive by sandflies, and trying to line up hatches and trying to avoid weather and trying to make sure that you got the best of for the next 3-day stint. And that takes a lot. And it's been amazing. Just in the last couple of weeks, I've just felt my entire being just kind of go like this, because I know the next few months, outside of nymphing on the Crow's Nest River over here near home, my mind can relax. I know that it's going to be winter fishing. So it's actually one of the blessings of the year.
Yeah.
But that video and getting back to your show and the guiding, that was, I bet you any money that if they were going to do that show over again, it would be Amelia guiding these days, though. And that's a big, massive difference in the fly fishing industry since we shot that show, is the women involvement.
Yeah, there's been a big increase, that's for sure. And it's neat to see. I'm excited to see it. I mean, Orvis has had a big push for the whole 50-50 on the water, and just getting more and more women, potentially interested in the sport and recognized and whatnot. And it's neat to see there has been some growth for sure in that department. But
So,
yeah, I'm clear.
Go ahead. Here, that's a good point. To that, today, you were the guest of Tom, I think it was 2 years ago, on his podcast. And we started today uploading Tom's old podcasts. And the #1 podcast for Tom in the last 7 years was the one with you.
You're kidding.
No, and at one time when we were fly fishing, we were talking about how to spot trout.
Yep.
And for over an hour, the two of you talked about this, and you explained all the different things that you and Dave have learned through your craft and all these days in the water you spend. But the point is, a few years ago, that would have been quite something to see a woman talking that much about fly fishing. It was a rarity. And now it's a lot more common. So I think that's why it resonated so well. That's my opinion on it. And I just put it on your guide to fly fishing. So if anybody wants to watch it, or which I say watch it, listen to it, you can listen to it, because I listened to it. It was really a fantastic dissertation on a whole bunch of points to drink in about how to spot fish. But I want to get into that. Point is, yes, and I've got my daughter in fly fishing,
which is great.
I appreciate that. I'm on board with what you're saying. So that video clip was a little moment in time. I've got another one from your channel we'll talk about. I do have photos you gave me, which are great, of Fortress Lake, which is still one of my top places I've ever been in my life. And for people who are in the channel right now, Fortress Lake is in British Columbia, and it's, I think, 7 miles long. It's an aqua blue color. It's nestled between mountains, and it has brook trout in it, thanks to some adventurous natural resource people from Jasper. I think they're park rangers that brought in coaster brook trout from the Nipigon River, brought them in and dropped them in the lake. And then World War II came and everyone forgot about them. And then fast forward to the 1970s, and somebody parks over the float plane and casts a line out and catches a big, huge brook trout, goes, holy mackerel. So, and I went there in 2003 or 4 to do a show with the owner before you. Before you took it over. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience of being lodge owners? Because, obviously I go to lodges a lot, and you've been in lots of lodges, and I got to tell you, they're the hardest working people in this industry. Them and guides, I mean, holy mackerel. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience with Fortress Lake? And I'm sorry, I can't seem to make the pictures come up that you gave me, but we'll just let you tell everybody about how wondrous this place was.
Yeah, it was pretty spectacular. I think the biggest memory for me there was just the scenery was amazing. I mean, it was essentially we were right on the Continental Divide, and we flew past 3 of the highest peaks in the Canadian Rockies. Actually, if you could see it, I'll give you, there's some of them in behind me here.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was amazing, and that was a big draw for folks, along with the fact that you could come in and catch literally, I'd say, typically on average it was sort of 3 to 5 pound brookies when we were there.
Yeah.
Obviously there was the odd bigger one as well, but yeah, incredible scenery. And yeah, the life of owners of a lodge. Well, let's just say, get up at 4 a.m. We were actually living in Red Deer at the time, which was 5 hours from our float plane base. We started out, first of all, helicoptering in, and then we moved from that to a float plane, which, we could go on and on, story after story. But the truth was, yeah, you'd have a really long day, get up at 4 a.m., drive with all your supplies, hop on that little Cessna plane, 4-seater. You'd have a few trips of that, a few loads of people. We'd only take up to about 14 guests, so this wasn't a huge lodge. But we'd fly in, you'd have a full day, and yeah, you'd flop into bed at night at 11 o'clock. And,
If you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky. And you'd put on so many hats. I mean, I think I was guide, cook, accountant, whatever else, came into the picture, manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, it takes a lot of work. It was super rewarding. It was a trip of a lifetime for a lot of folks, and that was really neat to see. I think the neat thing I was remembering even today was that we had a lot of couples actually that came in and really enjoyed their time, and that was really neat to see. The fostering of just enjoying that experience together. But yeah, Dave, I mean, you go ahead. Talk a bit about
it. It's hard to be too positive. It's hard to be too negative. It's hard to be a lot of because at the end of the day, you try your best. And, when it comes, it's more of a business thing in my head, because I loved the scenery. I loved the flight in. The flight, the whole air transportation game is something that if you sit and talk to, pilots, bush pilots, lodge owners, and anytime that you're reliant on transportation, it's I don't know. There was so much stress involved, but at the same time, when things were good, they were so incredibly good. But when there was stress, it was, I remember one of the best article opening lines that I never wrote was, we were out of butter and eggs on the 8th day of a 5-day trip. It describes, it describes perfectly what it was like when you got, you see that 7-mile long valley. Well, what happens when the weather socks in? And now you've got guys that were supposed to be gone home 3 days ago, and you've got people that were supposed to come in. And, the business side of things is really where I kind of go, geez, it was fun, but I'm glad to be out of that. But when it comes to the fishing and being there and all of the why we did that, all that stuff is just an amazing memory and a gift in life, because not many people take it on, take it go or try. And when we got into it, we hopped into it and we said, we're going to give it a go. And well, we did. And for 10 years, we did our best. And, a couple of economic downturns happened in that time, and we still managed to squeak her through. And eventually we just said, you know what, I think it's time.
Yeah, and I think our time there did certainly inspire a lot of our, again, videography
Yes.
work, because, we wanted to strengthen that in terms of reaching our clients at the time and letting them know, what they could experience, that kind of thing. And, to be honest with you as well, it was really great in terms of strengthening our relationship with Orvis, because we actually were an Orvis endorsed lodge as well. And so that was really neat. It was a time where we started to develop more of a relationship with the folks at Orvis. And, we'd go down to the guide rendezvous every year and learn the different things that we needed to learn going into our next season. And yeah, you look back and everything in life is a stepping stone if you
Oh,
choose
yeah.
to really look at it that way, regardless of the hardships and the things that you go through that maybe aren't so fun. So
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that kind of goes to the next step, because we're now already halfway through the hour, and I think this is a good time for us to talk about how you made the transition to where we are right now. You already mentioned about how you spent a lot of time in New Zealand. Obviously a bucket list place for a lot of people, but that became kind of your raison d'etre while you were in the winter mode, and then you had Western Canada and the US during the summers, right?
Yeah.
And then it was combining those things, and you started doing work with Tom and Phil Monahan at Orvis, and making these incredible videos that captured everyone's heart and imagination, because seeing that brown trout, as you were talking about, coming up and eating that fly, and to do it in slow motion.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Yeah.
those moments, and it's the things we have in our heads. So you kind of started creating poetry visually, and then I've seen the progression move to story, education, a whole bunch of things. Dave, I could see you bouncing in the seat there. So
Yeah. Well,
I
I have to back it up just a little bit, because way back in the day, when we first got married, I did a bunch of fisheries work in Alberta back, and I got at the Ram River catch and release in Alberta, and I befriended my most kindred spirit fellow, Barry Mitchell, and he published the Alberta Fishing Guide magazine. And we did a lot of different things, like a Stream Watch Coalition. We hired conservation officers for rivers in Alberta. We did a whole bunch of stuff on the Red Deer River in terms of catch and release and trying to get a fisheries management plan. Pursuit of fisheries charges and that kind of stuff. We did a lot of things kindredly. And we got out of Fortress Lake Retreat ownership because Barry, after he started his magazine in 1971, he was diagnosed with a terminal disease. And we said, you know what? In order to carry on the legacy of Barry and his wife, Anne, let's take the magazine on and make sure that it carries on. And that's what we did as an interim. In, I think it was 2014 to 17, for four issues in the magazines. And the reason that I bring that up now is because the one thing that Barry instilled in me, and the ethic that he instilled in me, is you never posture people. You never posture your audience. You never come across better than, cooler than, hipper than. You don't go out of your way to try to be the star. And the Alberta Fishing Guide magazine is, hey, you know what? There's half the magazine is articles on how to and where to, and the back half of the magazine was 1,400 listings of the lakes and rivers in Alberta. And your job as publisher editor is to make sure the information's up to date. You try your best with the information, you present it, and you search out articles that help people. And if a writer was coming across as, well, I did this, I did that, I did this, no, sorry, rewrite it with the audience in mind. And that became something that really wove itself into me, because what are you doing posturing your audience? What's the point of not helping your audience? If your audience is one other person, and you have a means to help that person, I don't care if it's your friend, best friend, a cousin, if you're out on the water with that audience, whoever it is, you have to build them up if you're the one with experience. So it doesn't matter if it's one person, 1,000 people, 100,000 or 200,000 people. I don't care what your audience is. If you're not helping that, and if you're not making them better, either at angling or opening an opportunity, a mindset, travel, or whatever it is, if you're not doing those things for people, you're doing yourself and them a disservice. And that's why when you see the rises, it started off with, yeah, look at how cool that rise is. But then it was, hey, look what that fish is actually doing when it's rising. Hey, look at that refusal. Hey, look at that set of lips come up, and that push of that mouth and that natural mayfly curls around that fish. It doesn't just happen to our flies that we cast in the water. It actually happens with naturals. So you start to be able to hone in on this stuff, and you get, you spend a little bit of money on a camera gear that captures that stuff, and you can start to share with people, hey, this is what happens naturally. Fish miss flies. Fish, they double chomp on nymphs, and you see them eat, and as you're setting the hook, they're chomping. They're opening their mouth again. And you start to point this stuff out to people to make them understand it's not just everything that we do that causes screw ups or we're the heroes. No, point this stuff out so people understand, what's going on, and to think differently, to think laterally, and literally laterally in the case of a brown trout, but, help people. And that really got into me as part of being involved with the Alberta Fishing Guide magazine. And that's why we have gone so far into the how-to, because we just see a need of presenting opportunity and helpful tips for people as far as we can offer them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the other thing I was going to say to that is that one thing I kind of started to see as I was on the water with Dave and with the cameras, I thought, hey man, I can get really in behind Dave wherever I could actually, kind of get some kind of height or that kind of thing. And I can get in behind him and really help the viewer kind of feel like they're there. And I think that was a big thing that we've focused on since then, especially in our instructional videos as much as we can, is to really, position ourselves well. And as Dave says, that's sort of an honoring of each other in the moment, of course, of, the person who is fly fishing and taking it on, but honoring our audience to say, hey, this is what it's like, and this is what's happening. So yeah, it's always our hope really to be inspiring to our audience. That's for sure.
Done authentically, though, too. I think that's
not in a contrived way. Yeah.
Like if people say, well, it sure would have been nice to be able to see this in your video. Well, the reason that you can't is because, it's a husband and wife team. If we're in New Zealand, chances are pretty good that we spent the night living in a van, sleeping in a van, camped out, and we're just out there walking a river together. And most of this stuff that you see now is handheld. The image stabilization on these cameras is phenomenal. So you get out there and you're trying to focus on the fish, but you're also trying to show the person. But at the same time, we're trying not to show the scenery. And that's a touchy one, because that gets back to the where. We don't want people focused in on, hey, there's a telephone pole behind you, or there's that mountain behind you. That's where that is. No, don't worry about that. Just go and find a river, do some of this stuff, try some of this stuff. And you know what? You're going to find your magic on your creek. Watch our video, but only see what we're doing, how we're doing, and why the fish is where it is doing what it's doing, and apply it to any stream, because I guarantee that stuff is happening on your streams.
Yeah, and it's going to be authentic. You're going to see us screw up at times.
Oh, yeah.
That's an important thing to have. We try to do the same thing in our show.
Yeah.
I've talked to other TV show hosts, and it's sort of like the big fish thing. I can't do a show unless we have big fish, or can't show that. And I agree 100%. You have to show losing fish, not being able to catch fish, catching little fish. That's the way fishing really is. So I agree 100% about the reality. I think this is a good juncture right now for me to play a video clip from your YouTube channel, or specifically this one's actually, I think, one of the ones you made for Orvis.
Yeah.
But to give people a sense of what you're building and how great it is for all fly fishers at all levels, whether they're new or more advanced. And then I think once the video plays, I think one of the things we should do is open it up and ask people for some questions. So here we go.
So we're out here today and the water levels are dropping. We've got about 3 feet of visibility, and Dave was just up above me looking for rises.
and he just saw these 2 smashing rises. So what that tells me is they're probably stonefly takes. We have seen a few golden stones out and a lot of sallies and whatnot. So what I decided to do was to put on basically a slightly larger sized, size 6, I guess this is, a stimulator. And because I know that the stones are out. But the thing is I'm not just gonna go with that, because I kind of want to work my way up to these fish, knowing that in this particular run, there are other fish to be caught. So below this stimulator, about 2 feet or so, I've got a little caddis pipa nymph. And that's how I'm going to work the water, because these fish have risen, but they're not rising consistently. Like, we're not talking every, you know, sort of 10 to 30 seconds. He's seen them, a couple times, and that's about it. So I want to make sure that before I hit that exact zone that he's shown me they were rising in, that I get my nymph through the water and see what else I can pick up. So because there's caddisflies and mayflies on the water, and even though I call this a caddis pupa nymph, reality is it could be seen as a mayfly nymph. So I'm just going to give it a go and know that there's a good chance that the fish is going to take it based on what it is. So I'm using a 9'5" weight. That's what I prefer to use out here. And I'm actually using about 11.5 foot leader, tapered to 3X to my dry fly, to my stimulator, and then 2 feet of 4X down to the nymph. And that's what works for me. I'm comfortable casting that, and there's no reason to be going a whole lot longer on the leader or a whole lot lighter in these circumstances with only 3 feet of biz. So I'm just going to work my way up, because even though Dave's told me exactly where those smashing rises were in the head of the seam up here, I'm going to just start to work my way up and we'll see what happens.
Nice. Well done.
That's fun
That
stuff.
Yeah, it was a great spot, that's for sure. And you know, I guess the thing about what I wanted to say about our videos is, especially when it comes to the stuff that we've done for Orvis and the masterclass stuff and the advanced tactics, is that you know, what we really try to do is talk about the why behind what we're doing and really describe that. You know, of course, we get into, you know, what we're using and the gear and whatnot and how we're going about it. But I think quite often we want to make sure that we get to talking a bit about the why, and a lot of the why ties into conditions and that kind of thing. So, you know, that's something that we certainly, you know, try to do in those videos as best we can. And hopefully that comes across well to the audience.
Dave, do you want to add anything there?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's again, that comes back down to, you know, well, actually it comes down to partly because I'm obsessive enough to really think through all this little bit of stuff and to be able to share that. You know, people that fish and just want to get out fishing, that's great. My mind is more and I know that Amelia's mind has gone that way too through the years, is what's that fish doing? Why is it there? What are the conditions that are forcing that fish to be at that spot right now? And okay, so that's why it's there. Now, what's it feeding on? And can we see what it's doing? And a lot of what drives us is the camera work as well as the fishing. I would say probably the camera work is kind of ahead of the fishing these days in terms of getting the shot. And if you can get into position to get the shot, and you can really hone in and share what that fish is doing, and that's really where the really cool stuff is. And it's a real blessing to work with Amelia on a lot of the shots, to be able to rely on her casting to be where it needs to be so that we can capture a lot of that stuff. But it all has to come together, and it takes a lot of time. But when you really bring it all in together, as you know, Colin, with your show, I mean, you guys do so many things, but the hardest thing is to take that half hour and, a half hour out of your whole thing when you're at a lodge doing what you guys do, and do that repetitively. Well, it's really hard to do that. Whereas, because essentially we're fly fishing artists that just kind of go and film stuff, we can take that half hour, or as in the case of video that we're going to launch on Saturday, 2 hours on one pool with 6 cutthroat trout in it. And Amelia does a good job of hoovering the pool, but you can't do that when you're trying to do your style of show. Whereas maybe with what we're doing, we can hone in and share some of the really, minutia of, a fish coming, and you see, a size 18 pheasant tail nymph a foot below the dry fly. You can actually see it open and close on the, that kind of stuff is really cool. So, but the point is to share that. And it's obsessive and I freely admit it's, my brain goes over the top with that stuff, but it's really cool when you can capture it on video and share that to help people.
Okay, Amelia, somebody's asked a question, and this is a great juncture for us to start taking some questions about your channel, about the work you're doing. You've done a great job explaining where you're going with the channel. Somebody's asking about the presentation you did. They want some more information. Can you give some more details about the cast, how you had that rigged up, length of leader, the dropper? I think you said you were 24 inches below your dry fly, things like that. This is the stuff, the technical stuff people want to know. And I got to tell you, when I first started getting into fly fishing, it was one of the reasons I created the show. Is I was so frustrated trying to get information, because you could look in a book, but try and watch this on TV or in a video, and everyone loves to show big fish, but you gotta balance it with information, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that's how we're drinking it. So can you talk about how you got that beautiful rainbow?
Yeah, absolutely. You bet. I mean, first of all, like I say, I started out by fishing that run. Essentially, I was using an H3 5-weight rod, a 9-foot 5-weight, and I typically always like to go with about a 12 to 14 foot leader. So that's what I had on, and it was down to 3X on my dry. Again, we were fishing water that wasn't, crystal clear or anything, so no issue on that front. And what's that?
If I could jump in for a second.
Yeah.
One of the things that a lot of people don't understand, and I know I didn't for a long time, was the importance of, I know when I first read about it, I always had this feeling I had to, I got to use 4X or I got to use 5X. And it's what you just casually mentioned something there, which a lot of people don't understand, is that you should use the strongest tippet you can.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right? Because that way you can fight that big fish, not break them up, and more importantly, fight them in quickly and land them, release them with the least amount of impact on them. So sorry to jump in there, but this is exactly what you're talking about, Dave.
Yeah.
The fact that you say something which for us is like, oh yeah, of course, you can go to 3X. You can see it's only 2 feet of visibility, a little bit cloudy water. But that's real important. This is stuff that's so important. And what I like about your videos is the level of detail and content you're putting in there. So sorry, didn't want to interrupt, but I thought it was important, Amelia, because that's spot on.
No, you're absolutely right. And honestly, I would say on majority of waters, we will start out with 3x. I mean, if we're using a much bigger fly, we'll even go 2x. And if we can get away with that, and you know, the fish aren't going to respond negatively, especially if it's unpressured water, and that's something to consider. You should be fine to start out that way. And from there, of course, it depends on the size of the hook that you're using. But you know, in that circumstance, I had fished up to that specific fish that we had seen rising, and I had used a dropper setup. Okay, so a dropper being a dry down to a nymph, because I know that that pool has a lot of fish in it, a lot of trout in it, and there was a good chance I was going to hook up, even if they weren't consistently rising, which they weren't, and I talk about that. I knew I would hook up on a few on the nymph, right? And some of the dropper nymph stuff that we're doing is a bit trial and error in the sense of the depth, right? If you're not hooking into them and you've got like a foot-long dropper, then hey, maybe you got to change it up and you got to make it 18 inches to 2 foot. You know, those are the sorts of things that we kind of think through as we either get results or don't get results. But that specific fish, you know, again, in the end, position, where you'll hear us so much on our videos talking about approach and position. Tonight, actually, we've put out on our How to Fly Fish Trout Streams, which is one of our major series that we will talk about here. Every night we host it on, every Wednesday night of every week, we host that one. And we just basically dive into a certain situation that we've had on stream, where we talk about a specific tactic, and then at the end we kind of have a bit of discussion between Dave and I about that scene that we've shown on the river and what was happening. And actually tonight it is about approach. It's called Approach is Queen. Instead of approach being king, it's queen, because it's me. Anyway, yeah, so approach is important. And on that particular stream, on the video that you showed, my approach, of course, was from downstream. I had a bit of a high cliff on my right-hand side, as the river was, you know, I'm facing upstream, and I had the cliff on my right-hand side. And in order to get into position to get a fish to take on a dry fly, we're always about getting, honestly, as close as you can comfortably, as long as the fish will let you, because you're going to have a lot less chance of, you're not going to have to mend as much, and therefore you're going to have a lot less chance of either spooking the fish with the mend, or by just messing up the whole drift and whatnot. So we like to try to keep our cast short. And so I think I got within literally probably 2.5 rod lengths of that fish. And I had to, you know, strong up to 1 o'clock and not too many false casts. It was probably maybe 1 or 2 false casts, and on the water to the target where I'd seen that fish rise. And that was because I did have a bank in, you know, close to me on my right-hand side that I wanted to avoid. And, you know, from there, you know, I led the fish by, I think, about a couple feet and slightly to its right. And that fish came up and took, and away we went. So, you know, yeah, I hope that answers your question. I mean, there's a lot to it, right? Hopefully I haven't confused the hell out of everybody, but.
No, I think there were some comments there. And this is, again, why, you know, you got a great channel. It's the level of detail in your videos, and it's the information people want. And certainly, you know, sometimes we'll get comments, oh, this is such basic stuff. I don't want to give me more advanced. You got that. I look at your videos and I'll see, I consider myself a medium experienced angler, but it's all based on the conditions, right? And I have different places I've been that I know this, but I don't know that. And certainly clear waters, wide open banks, you know, different types of fishing. Each one's different, and how you address those conditions, that's the experience. And even if I know it, I'm amazed. And that's kind of where I got my name for the New Fly Fisher, was just because every time I think I know something, I don't know anything. Like I go somewhere and a guide shows me something, I go, oh, I never thought of that. There's something small. I can't even, like, I've got a lot of experience catching brook trout. Yep. And then I learned something new about catching brook trout. But what I'm going to do right now, I'm sure we've got more we got to talk about, but we're almost out of time, believe it or not. And I know people are really excited to go back and watch CNN and see where the election is stagnated at right now. But let's talk a little bit about your channel and when you put stuff up. And then I also think it's important, it's a good juncture for us to talk about how we have decided, along with the people at Tightline Productions, which is Tim and Joan Flagler, who make the great fly time videos a lot of you like to watch, we decided to collaborate in YouTube. And this is obviously one of the steps. Like I said, I've always been a huge fan of you guys, and have seen you progress over the years. And Dave, I remember when you first got your first little Canon video recorder and putting up the tripod and getting those shots. But that was, I know you did stuff before that, but that's how it kind of grows. And I remember when I first started, I was doing this and that, and now you're bang on when you're talking about how I can spend 45 minutes to make a 10-second shot.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of the beast, right?
It just is.
Difference between quantity and quality.
Yeah. And, you know, whenever we're on the river, whenever we're on the water, every day we just want one solid engagement each. Because if you think about it, that's 2 videos. And if you can tell the story and take the time and tell the story of that one engagement, well, that's it. And then what ends up happening is you end up with about 10 or 15 or 20 fish, and well, you end up about 25 years behind in your editing. I don't know if you know anything about that, Colin. the mountain happens pretty quick, but through the years, we never really took a lot of stuff too seriously in terms of our own brand. Well, you know, Orvis was a great connection with Tom, and now supplying you guys with a bit of footage as well. But we never really took things seriously until, well, this year. And isn't 2020 just the driver of change? And we just decided that, you know what, this is the time where we're going to go ahead with YouTube. And we're going to do the 3 series. On Monday night, we do the Orvis Advanced Tactics, which is all the 3 to 10 minute videos that we've produced for Orvis on Masterclass Mondays. Well, it's now an advanced tactics kind of thing. And then on Wednesday, like Amelia said, we started, I think, a month ago doing how to fly fish trout streams. Just take one scene, show the scene and how it came together. And then Amelia and I just chit chat, just like we're doing right now, about that scene. And then on Saturday mornings, we are doing another long formats video called As It Happens. And eventually what's going to transform there is that you'll just be with us on that run, on that pool, on that, well, wherever we are. And we'll actually talk through our mindset. Again, more detail of, hey, that fish is there because what time of year are we, and why are we using this setup or that setup, and make a 20-25 minute video specific to that run. Mm-hmm. And on last week's episode, it was on a cutthroat trout, bull trout, whitefish run river out here. And, I just dissected the run, and I little things like not setting the streamer hook set on a cutthroat caiman 8 because I was targeting a bull trout. Well, I wanted to catch that cutthroat on a dry fly, so I didn't set the hook when the cutthroat ate the streamer. Well, how do I know that fish is going to go back to station and continue rising? Well, it's a cutthroat just after high water. It's looking for food. I know that thing's, it's not going to be shy. It's just going to go back where it was. I'll catch the bull trout, pull it out, and now I go back after that cutthroat with a dry fly. And how do I know those things? Well, that's what we aim to accomplish. So it's Monday and Wednesday evenings and Saturday morning, and that's what we're going to continue to develop. And there's actually some pretty seriously cool video to be coming this winter as we get past the election and into Christmas and the New Year.
Great. I'm just going to put up the banner. So the easiest way, rather than put the link, is if you do a search in YouTube for Jensen Fly Fishing. That's the easiest way to find your channel, same as with the new fly fisher. And then I guess the other means that they can use is they can use Fly Fish Alberta, which is your website, right?
Yeah,
videos that I'm doing. Right now, I mean, you're having really fantastic growth in your channel, which is, congratulations to you. And I think it's going to be exponential winter. because of all the people who are coming into fly fishing. I think, I don't know if people know this that are watching us right now, but the last 6 months, we've seen a dramatic increase in the number of people who are getting out into fly fishing. And you're obviously getting the comments from people who are getting into it at all different levels. Some of them are coming from the spin fishing world. Some of them haven't fished at all in their whole life, but they want to try fly fishing first.
Yeah.
Stats are fantastic. And certainly Simon Perkins at Orvis has been articulating how they can't get certain types of fly fishing equipment, especially the introductory level stuff, quick enough to the customers or into the stores because it's selling so well. And I don't think this is going to change. So I think your channel is going to really enjoy some great growth, not just because of the quality, but also it's going to be given a boost because there's so many people getting into it. And in particular, Amelia, women on your side, I think they're, 30% of the new anglers are women fly fishers at all ages. So this is really great stuff. I think we're probably at the end of our hour here.
Oh, wow.
I know it goes quick, and probably the best thing. I'd love to have you guys back on again, and probably next time. Let's, we kind of done an intro here. Why don't we tackle some topics, like pick something specific?
Absolutely,
that'd be great.
Could be, setups for different types of situations. Dave, you just talked about a great one. See, because I would have been the guy cast for the cutthroat, and they had the bull throw idiot. So,
and that's what I was trying to avoid,
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to quickly say, Colin, that we are really excited about the collaboration that we are doing with the new Fly Fisher, with you guys, and with Tight Lines, with Tim and Joan Flagler with Tight Line Productions. I think the neat thing is that we all kind of present a bit of a, we have a commonality where we present a bit of an instructional and useful content to the audience. We all come at it from a slightly different angle, but it's really neat to be able to kind of collaborate with both you guys as well as Tight Lines, and we know that we'll all three be able to build and grow stronger with our each respective channels. And so thanks for kind of, I don't know, spearheading a little bit of that, and we just want the fact of the matter is that I know I wanted to say that I certainly, through the years with the new Fly Fisher, have always admired the fact that we know a number of people that are certainly new to fly fishing have absolutely loved your show and really, keyed into so much of what you've done. And that's something that just struck me. And so,
thanks for saying that.
Excited to see where it's going to go.
The most important thing is between the three of us is that I think we're all here trying to better the audience and better the people that are watching and tuning in. That's the most important thing. If you guys if we weren't all the same mindset to build up people and improve their experience, doesn't matter if you're tying a fly, casting a fly, just being out there with friends or whatever it is, we're all just simply trying to make our engagements about the audience and improving life.
I just got to spend more time watching Tim's videos because my flies look like roadkill most of the time.
Me too.
Roadkill catches fish, though.
So on that note, like I said, I'd really like to have you guys back on again. Thank you, everyone, for coming in and watching. And go to YouTube. Type in Jensen Fly Fishing, have a look at their channel, have some fantastic videos. I strongly recommend you subscribe so you get all their updates. And I mean, you got so many great things happening right now, and who knows what else you're going to put in the pot in the future. Because I know, Dave, you love editing, so.
There'll be a couple features this winter in January and March, and we'll touch on that a little later.
Okay. Listen,
thanks so much to all the people that have supported us through the years and continue to. And we really appreciate it.
All right. Everyone have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.